Okay. This is Adrian Leeds with the Adrian Leeds Group, and I'm here with Brian Dunhill from Dunhill International Financial Planners and Kelly Kutchin with Money Corp Currency Specialists. Patty Sadowskis is on as well, who will be monitoring your questions. So welcome to the North American Expats in France Quarterly Financial Forum. This is our fourth quarter. We do these every quarter, and we will have them in 2025, and we'll be announcing those dates in the next few weeks. But today we will be discussing money logistics, banking, and daily money issues. Brian is going to go ahead and, who is our co-sponsor, he's going to go ahead and give us an introduction before Kelly gets to speak more specifically about transferring your funds from dollars or Canadian dollars or any currency to euros especially when you're making a purchase in France. So let me just give you a little bit of housekeeping. Please put your questions in the Q&A. Patty will be trying to answer some of them as we go along, but we are going to end the session a little early and with enough time to do a Q&A so that Kelly can answer the questions for you. Brian and I will also be there to do that. And please keep your questions on topic. So, Brian, welcome. Get started.
Thank you so much, Adrian. We'll just jump right into the deep end and dig in on Donald Trump winning the election. We won't get so political on that vantage point, but what I really want to talk about is what it's going to do to affect currencies. Kelly's going to be able to walk you through how to get the currency over there at a good rate. But what we want to talk about is what we would expect from the US dollar potentially under a Trump presidency. And to back up on that, we have to look at some of the most important policies that he's talking about. Now, talking about and implementing are two different things, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. Doesn't implement most of the things that he's actually put together, but some of them are important because they impact his back pocket, and therefore he will probably implement them. The most important of those is most likely the tax cuts. So there's 5 policies that really will probably influence inflation on the American side, which are essentially breaking down the tax cuts, which expire in 2026, and therefore will most likely get renewed. More government spending. We've seen the increased deficit. Trade policies, essentially 100% tariffs on Chinese goods and also European goods as well. Deregulation, the energy policy, and what he might end up doing with the Federal Reserve as well. That was 6. I said 5. I apologize. I'll learn how to count one of these days. Now, all of these policies are potentially inflationary if they're all implemented. And the reason why inflation is so important is if inflation rises, I would expect interest rates will have to stay higher and higher for longer. If interest rates stay higher for longer, and interest rates go down in Europe, which is what they would be expected to do with the slowdown of the economy, the flood of money will continue going to the US. If the flood of money continues to go to the US, that demand goes up, therefore the dollar goes up. That is why you're seeing, since election day, most all international currencies going down significantly. You've seen articles about the euro potentially going to even lower levels and many opportunities there. Now, that's all going to be true in the short term, especially if he only institutes a few of these policies and doesn't go all in on all 6. But if we have hyperinflation or the such, the currency can go up until it cripples the economy, and therefore the dollar could have a little bit of a crash landing under too many of these policies. This is where it's extremely important to think about this in a little different way than we have in the last 13, 14 years, Kelly, that we've had a strong dollar, a good long period of time. We've talked about it many times before that typically we have 10 to 15 year trends where the dollar's strong, then 10 to 15 years where the dollar is weak. So we're closing in on that typical time period that the dollar would be strong. And that's where I will remind you, even though basically saying this is going to lead to dollar strength for a period of time unless it goes too far and falls apart. The key way to manage risk is through diversification. And what does diversification really mean? In this scenario, it's having diversified currencies. So it might mean having a lot of stock exposure in the United States and maybe a property, a house, or something of the sort in Paris or the south of France, so that you get some euro exposure and get that mix in between. But take advantage of these different cycles as they move forward, and diversify out that risk to where you want to be, because it could be a rocky ride over the next couple of years. Dollar moving higher and then hopefully not having a crumble point like we've seen in the Nixon administration and the Reagan administration, of which both of them Trump likes to try to emulate.
Brian, I hate to interrupt you, darling, but we are hearing a lot of background noise, and you're the only one whose mic is open. So is it coming from you?
It is. I apologize. I had to make a stop on my way back home to the office, so it is in a background noise type of place. But don't worry, we're
Okay.
gonna get Kelly
Okay, so
Kelly on the line as
speak
fast as possible.
speak louder.
Absolutely. Key aspect that we really want to go for is essentially we want to diversify and mix our currencies going forward so that we don't just have exposure to one currency, being the strong US dollar. And that's where the most important question is, how can we get diversification in different currencies? And I'll pass it over to Kelly to talk about that.
Okay, but I have a question before you pass it over to Kelly.
Absolutely.
So, okay, so basically, if right now the dollar is really strong and you expect it to get stronger, yes?
In the short term, yes.
In the short term, yes. Okay. And then now I know what Kelly's going to explain, because we have a situation now where the notarial taxes and fees are scheduled to increase by a half a point in June of 2025. So for people who are considering making a purchase of property in France, they might want to try to do that before the notarial taxes, get more expensive. Okay, so within the next 6 months. And at the same time, if they're planning on making that purchase, then they're going to want to take advantage of the current rate of exchange. So I'm just going to throw that out there, because I know Kelly's going to be talking about the idea of buying forward.
That's right.
Okay,
you guys ready for me to take it away?
We are.
Fantastic. Well, thank you as always for allowing me to join you and to participate today with your guests. Hopefully there's no background noise from me here, and I will go ahead and jump right in. So thank you again. Just real quick, everyone, my name is Kelly Cutchin. I am the country manager for MoneyCorp here in North America. I have been with MoneyCorp now going on about 19 years. And over the course of those 19 years, I say that I've helped people all over the world buy and sell real estate all over the world. So I'm excited to talk to you today about buying in one of my favorite places, that is France. A little bit about MoneyCorp. We're actually a UK-based firm, and we've been trading in the foreign currency exchange industry since the late 1970s. Annually, last year, we converted about $90 billion worth of foreign transactions, foreign currencies. And that's important for you to know, in a sense that MoneyCorp is able to buy our money at the same rate of exchange that the big banks are buying currency at, and that is due to the volume of currency that we are purchasing per annum. We've got teams all over the world, and I always say that there's not many industries that are regulated as much as the foreign currency exchange industry. So the fact that we've been in business since the late 70s, I think really speaks to our compliance and ability to make sure that we are friends with all of the regulators by ensuring that client funds are safe, and just that we are doing everything above board. So you are safe using MoneyCorp. Our clients have great things to say about us, and we've had the privilege of working with some fantastic partners throughout the globe who trust Money Corp to assist their clients. So we're grateful, obviously, to have received many awards. We do always tell clients, do your due diligence, shop around, ask your questions, and don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can help in any way with supporting those.
I'm one of your clients for many, many years, and I can attest to all of that being true, by the way.
Thank you so much, Adrian. So here in red, we kind of just wanted to demonstrate some of the geographic locations that Money Corp has a physical presence in. But I did just want to mention quickly that you never have to visit us in person, although we'd love to share a coffee with you if you ever in my area. But everything that we do is over the phone and online, but we are a global organization. We can trade over 120 different currency pairs. So whilst this discussion is specific about France today, if you end up needing a different currency, that is something that Money Corp can certainly assist with. I invite you to visit our website at the conclusion of the webinar, which is moneycorp.com. There's just some really interesting stuff that you can find on there, blogs, property guides, useful information, dependent on how much you want to dive into the currency exchange world. If you're a currency geek, probably like Brian and I, then you can find some interesting reads on there. Again, I mentioned these property guides because sometimes we don't know the questions that we should ask. And sometimes some of those questions can proactively be answered for you there. So feel free to visit those. But I think having the ability to have these discussions with people like Adrian, Brian, and myself, hopefully between the three of us, we can hopefully answer 99% of your questions at least. And again, I'll mention that today we're going to talk about buying property in France. And I explained to you already that we can do most major currencies, but your transactions do not need to be real estate related. Many of our clients are doing all types of weird and wonderful things. Some are receiving inheritance and need to convert currency. Some are simply sending payments to friends and family, sending children to study abroad, destination weddings, you name it. If there's a foreign currency exchange and international payment need, then Money Corp is happy to assist with that. I guess it's worth mentioning now that our minimum is $250. So it's not that we only want to deal with people buying high-end luxury real estate. We can certainly help people do smaller transactions as well. So now I'm going to jump into the thick of it. And the thing that we often hear is, you know, my bank can help me do a transfer to Europe. Why wouldn't I just use them? There's something known as the interbank rate of exchange. And this is the exchange rate that big banks are obviously buying currency at. But it's not, unfortunately, the exchange rate that you or I personally would have access to. Again, going back to Money Corp's annual foreign transaction volume, Money Corp does have ability to get that same rate of exchange that these banks are buying. The difference is what happens with the banks is they charge a margin or a spread or a markup, whatever you want to call it. And unfortunately, in the US, the margins are pretty significant. It's not uncommon for a US bank to take a margin or a spread of anywhere from 3 to 5. I've unfortunately even had discussions with clients that were taking 8 to 10% margins. And that's just, you know,
highway
horrific.
robbery.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And I just think it goes back to the fact that the banks capitalize a lot on the fact that a lot of us Americans don't really understand the world of currency exchange. We're still kind of known as the people that go to foreign countries and then we just hold out our hands with the coins and we let the person pull the right amount. And so anyway, so the banks are kind of throwing these exchange rates out and knowing that more times than not, we're probably just going to say, okay, I guess that's the rate of exchange. So you really need to be careful to ensure that you're getting the best exchange rate when it comes time to actually do any of these transactions. What is transparent for the banks is the fee, right? Oftentimes the bank will tell you, sure, we can get a transfer made to Paris. It's going to cost you $50, right? But don't be fooled. That's just the upfront transparent fee. Their real money making is going to be on the actual rate of exchange behind the scenes. With MoneyCorp, we don't charge you any fees. There's no international transfer fees, and we're going to help you to get much closer to that actual true exchange rate, giving you the term that we all know, more bang for your buck, right? So again, you have those high margins with the banks. You also have to accept the exchange rate on the day when you're working with the bank, right? I need to move money. You have to contact them on the day that you want to move money, and then you're subject to the exchange rate that they can offer you at that moment in time. With MoneyCorp, we want to be a lot more proactive, right? So we want to engage in a relationship with you months, weeks, years even before this transaction comes to play. That way we can help you monitor the rate, decide the best time to do that conversion, and ultimately, again, getting you the most bang for your buck. We have bank accounts around the world, so you will never have to do an international transfer. In the example of dollars to euros, you'd be able to send US dollars directly to our client's safeguarded account in America. So the bank is not going to charge you an international transfer fee. We would then do the conversion and send the euros wherever they need to go. I'll move ahead now. So the process to set up an account with MoneyCorp is really, really simple. It is free and there's no obligation to utilize our services. It's about a 5-minute process. And at the very end of my presentation, I'll quickly flash a QR code. So maybe have your phone handy and you can either take a picture of my contact information and reach out, or go ahead and follow the steps in that QR code. But once you establish that account, we introduce you to a personal currency exchange dealer. This is not someone sat in a land far, far away. We're not giving you an 800 number so that every time you call, you speak to a different person. You have a dedicated currency exchange dealer to build a relationship with. And I think that's really key because they're going to help look after your best interest. They're going to help hold your hand. I even said to someone today, they're there to hold your hand, or they're there to carry you over the finish line, dependent on how much guidance and help you need through this transaction. But you're going to have a person to speak to on a regular basis to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's. So once you have that discussion with your currency dealer and you get to a point where you're ready to exchange currency, you can book a transaction with MoneyCorp in 2 ways. You can do that over the phone with your currency dealer, which we recommend, or of course you can do it through our online platform. But either way, once you book that exchange, you would then fund the account in US dollars using those local account details we share with you. And then you instruct MoneyCorp where to send your euros. Do bear in mind that you can hold a balance on your MoneyCorp account. So you may want to take advantage of today's rate and buy some euros, but you don't necessarily need to send those anywhere just yet. You can hold a balance on your MoneyCorp account. When you're ready, of course, you can instruct MoneyCorp where to send those euros, also bearing in mind that all of them don't need to go to the same place. You may need to send a percentage of those funds to the notaire. You may need to send a percentage of those funds to an attorney. You may want to send a percentage of those funds to a personal bank account that you've set up. Regardless of where the euros need to go, you just simply provide MoneyCorp with those instructions. And we're not going to charge you a fee, whether we do 1 transfer out or we do 27,000 transfers out.
Kelly, I would like to just comment that, and I've been dealing with you guys for many years, and the turnover in the office is like nil. I mean, I've been dealing with the same people for all these years, and that means a lot because some of the other brokers that I've worked with, I get a notice, well, that, that person's gone, there's a new person in place, but and there's much more turnover. So the stability, I have appreciated the stability of working with the same agents and knowing that I can count on them.
Absolutely. I mean, the folks here in my team, we're not coworkers, right? We're family. We've all worked with each other now for 10, 13, 15 years together. So it really is a family. And what that also means for you is that there's communication behind the scenes going on where we're working things out for the interest of our clients. So if anybody has a question, or we gab together constantly in the office just to help make sure that we have the best solution for whoever the client is. So these are some pretty cool slides that I'm about to show you, because I think what they do is illustrate the cost savings that we're talking about. Because oftentimes people go, if it's $50, it's okay. I'll just keep doing things the way that I've always done. But I think you might be very surprised, shocked to fill in the blank with the money that we're actually talking about here. So this is Jane. Jane is from the United States, and she's buying a property in France, and that property is selling for €500,000. So if Jane were to go to the bank today, she may get an exchange rate of 1.10, right? Which means that that property is going to cost her $550,000. Exact same moment in time, if Jane were to contact Money Corp, and I did prepare this slide yesterday, so we're actually slightly better than this at the moment, but you see the exchange rate here being 1.06, right? So the exchange rate difference from 1.06 with Money Corp to 1.10 at the bank means that we're going to save Jane $20,000. So you can tell the bank to keep their $50 international transfer fee, but you're not going to let them keep this 20,000 here. So it is really, really important that you are using someone that specializes in currency exchange to, again, help you get significantly more bang for your buck. And this is a very common illustration here. This isn't, a one-off. This is a very regular thing that occurs.
No, it happened to me very recently. I had a situation where I had to send the money from the notaire back to me. Okay, it's a long story, but anyway, I had to send the money back to me. Then I had to distribute the money differently, and then I had to send it back to the notaire. But there was a 2-week difference, and the rate went from $1.08 to $1.12 in that 2-week period, and in the exchange it cost me more than $21,000.
Yeah,
and and that was painful. So I need to be smarter about it. For sure.
Well, I think that your story there really kind of tees me up nice for my next slide here, because I think what we all know is that exchange rates fluctuate constantly. And we don't mean month to month or week to week. We mean kind of second to second. The exchange rates are bobbling around. And so your timing is really crucial, right? Do I transfer my money on Monday? Do I wait till Thursday? Do I wait till next week? Do I go ahead and do it now? There's a lot that goes into this to help make sure that you're converting your currency at the best possible time, at the best possible exchange rate within the time frame that you're working with, right? If you're closing in 2 weeks, well, we don't have a lot of time. But if you're in the early stages and you're not going to close for another 6 months, there's some time for us to really monitor things to make sure that you convert at the best possible time. So on my next slide here, we're going to talk about Jane again, and she's still purchasing a property in France for €500,000. But what I wanted to illustrate for you here is some of the exchange rate volatility. So in September, we were converting about 112, right? So that property was going to cost her 560,000.
That's what happened to me.
Maybe,
okay.
Right. All right. But rewind a little bit. In April, we were down at 1.06. So the illustration here is to show you that exchange rates do fluctuate, but to point out that Money Corp has the ability to lock into an exchange rate for up to 2 years. So had Jane been a bit more proactive here, we could have locked into the rate at 106, and she wouldn't have been bothered that the rate climbed to 112, right? She would have been locked in, and the property would have cost her $530,000 instead of $560,000. And had she been really organized here and been in touch with us even earlier on, back in October, we had a rate of 104. So we could have again locked into that rate, meaning that same property that's not changed in price would have been a cost of 520,000. So this is what I'm talking about in the relationship you want to establish with your currency dealer, because we want to help you decide, do I lock in now in October? Do I wait to see how things progress come April? And those are all kind of discussions that your currency dealer can help you sift through. Again, a pretty little graph here just to show you it's going to move. It's moved a lot this year. And I think the bottom line is it's going to continue to move. There are, of course, some beliefs that the exchange rate, the dollar, is going to get stronger, I believe, in the short term. But in the long run, we might see some of that dollar strength and stability decrease as things go on. But again, your currency experts can have those discussions with you. People often ask me what impacts the exchange rate, and there are so many things. I'm sure Brian can attest to this, right? But you have things like political stability, interest rates, inflation, elections, right? I always tease people that the only thing that maybe doesn't impact the exchange rate is like what I'm going to have for dinner tonight, because really there are so many things that go into this. And that's why it is important to not try to decipher all of the information on your own, but to work with a company that can kind of digest the information and provide you with the bullet points to help you make the right decisions. Again, lots of information always coming out. And it's not only just the information that you're getting here, right? You might turn on the news and get some information out of the US that is relevant to the exchange rate. But what you're maybe not watching is things that are happening in Germany that are having an effect on the euro. And again, working with a company that's looking at all of the different markets to come up with good strategies is important. Like I said, I wanted to share my contact information with you. I'm sure the guys can attest to the fact that I'm always available. You can email me, call me. I am very responsive. My team and I are always here to help. Adrian likes to point out sometimes that one of my colleagues and I are never on holiday at the same time. So whether it's me or any of my colleagues, we will endeavor to get a response back to you. And we're always happy to have a conversation with you. No questions are too silly. We have been doing this a long time. It's unlikely that you're trying to do something that we've never heard of, but regardless, would love to have those conversations with you. So don't hesitate to reach out. It's not bothersome whatsoever. And as I promised, I wanted to flash this QR code up quickly. Whether you're in the process of viewing properties right now, or it's something that you might do in a year, don't hesitate to register for the account. As I mentioned, there's no cost or obligation. You can at least have that preliminary introductory call with one of our currency exchange dealers. Or if you actively need to convert currency, we can get this up and running for you in less than 5 minutes. So I'll go ahead and pause there. I'm sure there's some questions. I think I saw a hand go up anyway.
I'm going to start,
yeah.
though. I have a couple of questions or comments before you open the Q&A. First of all, thank you very much, because your presentation is amazing. No, seriously, because it's so clear and precise. Your contact information is also on our website. So if anybody does contact your team, please let them know that we referred them over to you. That's one thing. But I want to go back to the buy forward, because you didn't use the terms buy forward. You talked about being able to lock in a rate, but the term for that is actually buying forward, right?
That's correct. So there's effectively two types of contracts. There's a spot contract, which means I want to do something right now on the spot. And then the other is a forward contract. And that forward contract is what allows us to lock into today's exchange rate for a future date of delivery.
And that's where I screwed up, because when I moved that money back and forth, if I had asked my agent, okay, I'm going to need to move this money back again in a few days or a couple of weeks, I should have locked it in.
We could have
so that I wouldn't have had that 4-point difference.
Correct.
Right, because they wouldn't have known. It wasn't something they would have known intuitively. I would have had to explain the situation. But yeah, I probably could have prevented that problem myself. So
And I think just to go on, pivoting to kind of what the situation, which a lot of the viewers are probably interested in, is moving money from the US to Europe and what that forward contract would entail. The good news is with the forward contract, let's say that you love the exchange rate today, it's 105, you want to lock in, you would only be required to send MoneyCorp a 10% deposit,
right.
which is very useful to a lot of people because they may not have all of the dollars available at this moment in time. Perhaps they still need to sell a property or they're waiting to receive funds from something else. But also it means they can keep the other 90% of their funds in interest-bearing accounts or whatever other, earning accounts that they may have. And all that they need to provide us with is a 10% deposit offsetting the total amount that they ultimately want to transact. And then of course, at that future date, when they go, all right, it's that date is here, I now need those euros, then they just send us the other 90% deposit or the balance, and they're not bothered that the rate at that moment in time has jumped to 120. They locked in at 105.
Right, that's right. Okay, and I want to make another comment. Oh, sorry, Brian, you go ahead, and then I want to make a comment.
Yeah, definitely. But I think to add on to what Kelly's saying, that's really important because interest rates in the United States are way higher than they are in Europe. So you might be earning 4.5% on a US CD, but you might only earn 1.5 or 2% on a European bank deposit, if you can even get that. So only having to put 10% down means you can continue earning that interest at a much higher level.
100%.
Okay, now I want people to also consider moving. There are people who are also selling property in France. Okay. And the notaire will send let's call it $500,000. They send that money to their French bank account. Well, a lot of our clients who've done that immediately think, well, I need to repatriate it, right? Just send it back to the States at whatever the rate of exchange is at the time. And I often, recommend to our clients that they not do that, that they leave it sitting in their French bank account until there is a good rate of exchange for them in the reverse, right? So, when the dollar's a little weaker and they need to repatriate it, they can make a little more money that way.
Adrian,
so how long can
it
sit on your account? That's the question.
It's
how long
really important to go into one thing that you've just mentioned. People can leave money in their MoneyCorp account indefinitely. However, it's not earning interest when it's in the MoneyCorp account. I know that question often comes up. Now, if you have an account that is earning you some interest and it's going to sit there for a significant period of time, then yes, consider that. If you're talking days, who really cares, right? Whether it's in this account or that account, it's probably not going to earn a lot of interest in such a short period of time anyway. So you can hold funds on your MoneyCorp account for an indefinite amount of time. One of the biggest mistakes that I see clients make is this. People believe that they can access funds, large amounts of funds in their bank accounts without them being physically present, which is not always
not
the truth,
that's
right?
Not the
So
case.
what you have is people go, all right, I'm going to go to France initially, and I'm just going to rent, and maybe I'm going to find a property that I want to buy in a period of time. But when that time comes, I'll then phone my bank in the US where my money is sat, and I'll just ask them to send my money across to France. No, you won't.
No.
The US banks require that you're physically present in the bank to sign a piece of paper to initiate an international transfer of substantial size. Now, if someone's on the phone going, no, that's not true. Well, please know that you are an exception to the rule and you probably have some special type of account set up, but that's not the norm. If you want to do an international transfer of a sizable amount, most, if not all, US institutions will require that you are physically present in order to make that international transfer. So again, we want to work with you early on to tell you this information so that you're not caught off guard. Because there are things that you can do to avoid those unfortunate situations.
I mean, I have it set up with my bank, which is in Tennessee, believe it or not. Okay. But I have to set up the transfer capability for each account separately. And it really was it was documentation. that we had to go through to set up the ability to transfer without me being present. But I call a special number. I have a special, client number, and I go through the hoops. But it doesn't. Now that it's set up, it doesn't take much time at all. Of course, I do a lot of transfers. I'm in. It's not just one or two off. But so it can be set up, but it has to be done in advance with your bank.
Exactly. I'll give you a nightmare example because I've just dealt with it so many times. I don't ever want anyone to go through this situation again. But during COVID, you had a lot of foreign nationals, right? Maybe a British client, someone from Canada, somewhere from another country that was looking to sell their property in the United States during that time. And what was happening is at some point, the local title company, right, the notaire kind of equivalent here, is asking the foreign seller, where do you want us to put your dollars at the time of closing? And because they weren't given good advice, they were instructing the closing agency to just put my money in my American bank account. Next week, I'll call them and I'll ask them to do a transfer for me back to the UK or Europe or wherever. And unfortunately, the banks would not do it. And there was no flexibility. There was no understanding that, oh, by the way, I can't get onto a plane and fly internationally to meet with you. Those funds were just getting stuck. So when you're selling real estate, we often times, Adrian, will instruct the client to have the notaire or the title company or attorney to transfer their proceeds directly into the Money Corp account. No, they're not earning interest while they're in the Money Corp account. However, you have access to them wherever you are in the world, whenever you need them.
Okay, I have one more comment to make, and that is because of the requirement in France that the money come from the account of the person or persons buying the property, and they have to have proof of it, that when the money transfers over to the notaire, the only thing they will see on it is Money Corp. They will not see it come from the bank account that it originally came from, which is not a problem because the original bank still has to attest to which account the money came from. So in other words, the notaire might say, but this came from Money Corp. This didn't come from your bank account. But it really is a simple process of getting what's called an attestation from the bank that specifies which account the funds did originally come from.
Correct.
So, but that's a detail. That's a detail.
It's a common thing, right? And I just wanted to point out as well that Money Corp can also write the attestation letter. So we issue a letter that says,
oh, good. Okay.
Barbara sent us money from her Bank of America account, and we sent money to the notaire on behalf of Barbara. So we can also provide that attestation letter. So between our letter and the bank issued letter,
then there's no problem.
Any issues. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So are you ready to open it up to the audience Q&A?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay. Patty, you're in charge.
I'm in charge. Oh, such a big responsibility. Questions for Kelly. There's a couple of questions about locking in the rate. What happens if the rate goes down, if it becomes more favorable?
Once you do lock into a rate of exchange, you are locked into a rate of exchange. So what you don't want to do is prematurely lock into an exchange rate. What we want to do is monitor it first. And I tell people all the time, there's really two instances where we see clients taking advantage of these forward contracts. The first is we get to a level of the exchange rate where we go, man, this is a dream come true. I'm going to lock into this rate of exchange. It's unlikely that it's going to get dramatically better than this. And I don't want to not take advantage of it. I'm going to lock in, right? That's the first instance of someone locking into the rate of exchange. The second instance is someone that's working on a pretty tight budget and they go, all right, the rate's pretty good. The hope is that it gets better, but heaven forbid it moves a couple cents against me. I'm going to have to shred up my dreams of buying French real estate. I should probably lock into the rate of exchange. So I know those are two extremes, but that's really the clients that we see book a long-term forward contract. The other people that do forward contracts are people that have regular expenses, right? Maybe you're getting a mortgage, maybe you have a regular pension coming over, and you don't want to deal with, okay, well, this month my pension is going to get me 500 euros, but next month, dependent on the exchange rate, it might only get me 300 euros. And okay, the next month I might get 600. If you're kind of trying to live on a budget, then let's lock into the rate if it gets pretty favorable, so that you can budget and know exactly how much that pension is going to earn you every month in euros on a regular basis. The other thing as well, I think, to point out is a 2-year forward contract gets the conversation going. Everyone always goes, wow, that's really interesting. But if I take all of the clients that I've spoken to over the course of the last 19 years about booking a 2-year forward contract, the reality is most clients are only doing a forward contract for, I'd say, anywhere from maybe 2 to 4 to 6 months, right? Most of us don't know what we're having for dinner tonight, much less what we're doing in 2, 6, 9, 12 months time. So most people are booking a forward contract when they're deep into the negotiations. They've found their property. The rate's really good right now. They're ready to just lock it in and move forward with, focusing on some other details and other logistical things. I gotta find a car now, and I gotta do this, that, and the other. So again, 2-year forward sounds exciting. The reality is most people are looking to do it in under 6 months, but a lot of corporate
that's true.
clients are doing 2-year forwards, right? So if you own a company and you're importing and exporting goods, or you're paying staff salaries in foreign denominations, and you can hedge your foreign exchange exposure, those are the clients of Money Corps that we're really helping do those kind of 2-year forwards for. Mostly corporate clients, though.
And once you make that decision, there's just no point in crying over spilled milk. I mean, you have to make your decision and live with it.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, if you want to gamble, go to Vegas. But if you want to kind of move on
Yeah,
and
right,
get things
lock it
done,
in.
lock
Right.
in the rate.
But I love what Kelly's summarizing there is essentially the actual rate that you're trying to get with a forward contract should be correlated with your financial plan. And at worst, it should be an insurance contract so that essentially it doesn't devastate your financial plan. That's the
It's all about
simplicity of it.
risk.
Absolutely. There's many a times where I've said to you, Adrian, that you don't have to worry about what the currency rate is going to be, because if all of a sudden you lose money on the currency, you'll gain money on the investment, or vice versa. So therefore, think about the whole picture and how it works in the entire financial plan instead of just the currency. Make sure that you're using a company like Money Corp because you want to get the best rate, but essentially it needs to fit in with your full financial plan.
Yeah, you always make me feel so much better, Brian, when I make such stupid mistakes. Okay, other questions, Patty?
Oh. This is another question for Kelly. I don't know anything about how your industry is regulated or insured. What happens to my account in the unlikely event that you go out of business?
Good question. So again, I think it goes back to that early on due diligence. I think, again, knowing that we've been in this industry since the 70s speaks a lot to our security of funds and longevity. Money Corp actually recently got our banking license here in the United States, and we're one of the only foreign exchange providers to have a relationship directly with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not just handing out licenses and doing business with just anyone. So I think, again, those things really speak to our stability. But the other thing to mention is that Money Corp uses big banks, right? So we've got bank accounts all over the world, but we don't have bank accounts with small little community banks. We bank with the big boys. So in the event you're doing a transfer from the US to Europe, in this example, you would send your US dollars into Money Corp's bank account at Bank of America. So your funds are held in a Bank of America account, which is FDIC insured. However, FDIC insurance only covers up to $250,000. With Money Corp, this type of account that your funds are held in is what's known as a client safeguarded account. Effectively, what that means is that at no point are those funds Money Corp's assets. Your funds are never used to offset our operational cost, nor are they used to offset a different customer's transaction. That might seem like an obvious thing, but you would be really surprised to know how many small foreign exchange brokers have gone out of business over the years because they used your deposit to offset somebody else's, and then that other person reneged on their contract, and now they don't have the funds to cover your deal. So at no point does Money Corp do that type of transaction. Your funds in are your funds out. The funds that are on account with Money Corp, it's similar to having the funds held in an escrow account. So your funds are safe. And again, they're safe not only for the $250,000 covered by FDIC insurance, but the entire amount is protected due to them being held in these client safeguarded accounts, which is a requirement in order for us to hold our MSB license for international payments. But do your due diligence, ask your questions, ask people like Adrian, ask people like Brian, and many of our other partners that we've worked with for 30 plus years who have, hundreds of success stories about clients using Money Corp services.
Well, but you talk about how essentially you're using the big banks, but at the end of the day, Money Corp is one of the big institutions out there. What did you say, 90 billion in transactions last year?
Correct.
That's not a small amount. So
yeah, and don't be.
Numbers.
I just want to clarify as well, right? Because my entire presentation was about don't use the banks, and then I'm saying, but Money Corp has their banking license. The difference is what we use that license for is to help us with security of funds. It helps us have access to quick and seamless payment rails. But what it does not mean is that we're going to start offering mortgages and lines of credit to individuals and having savings and checking accounts and things like that. So that's the traditional kind of bank account. Money Corp has this banking license so that we have access to some of the same products and services, but we're certainly not in the business of a traditional bank.
Right.
Very good. Kelly, another question for you. Does Money Corp process recurring transfers automatically?
Yes and no. It will depend on the currency pairs. But absolutely, right? So you can set it up so that on a monthly basis, Money Corp is going to convert $1,000 into euros and deposit those euros into your French bank account. Absolutely, we can set that up. However, you would have to do something on your own. You would need to set up reoccurring payments into your Money Corp account from your financial institution, right? So you would have to set up reoccurring transfers from, call it your Chase Wells Fargo account, so that every month we're receiving $1,000 from you in US dollars so that we could do that. What we don't have the ability to do is direct debit your local account. You do have to push the funds into Money Corp. A different way to do it, just in case this answers the person's question that's asking, you can also pre-fund the account in dollars, right? You could put 12,000 US dollars into your Money Corp account and then ask us on a monthly basis to convert 1,000 of those into euros and send them. But that means that you're going to ride the currency wave. The other way to do it is Money Corp, here's $12,000, go ahead and convert it to euros because we really like the rate, but only send 1,000 of my euros every month on a specific date. So I know that was a kind of a complicated answer, but the point being there's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things. So just
you
touch
call
base
that
with
regular
us.
payments abroad? You call it regular payments abroad, right?
We have a program called RPP, which is our regular payment plan. Yeah.
Okay.
In the UK, we have the ability to direct debit British pounds, so we can really set it up and automate it for you. In the US, because we don't have the ability to pull the funds out of your account, you have to push it. It doesn't really fall under that traditional RPP business that we have back in the UK.
I want to make a comment on this also because, the U.S. Social Security Service will actually send your Social Security payment directly to your French bank at an unbelievably great rate of exchange. Okay.
Mhm.
However, I have recommended to our clients that they not do that because they're not able to take advantage of this buy forward idea. So that, if they just let the money come straight into their US bank accounts, then they can determine when and at what rate they want to move the money to their French account. Otherwise, it is at the mercy of whatever the rate is at the time. Even though it might be better, it's still, you have no control over it.
Yeah, some people may be really dependent on that monthly payment, and therefore, we need to do things on a monthly basis. Some people might go, oh, the rate is garbage right now. Why would I convert my funds? Let me collect 6 months worth and then do a lump
Right.
sum at a future
That's right.
date. So sometimes setting things up entirely automated could hurt you in the end. Leaving things a little bit fluid sometimes
Mhm.
could work in your advantage, but again, it's for you and
Mhm.
your currency dealer to work out what's best.
Brian, do you think the rate's going to go to parity?
So there's some articles that have come out in the last couple of weeks that sends it to parity. But if you look at the main firms and what their predictions are, they're always going to give a 1, 2, and 3 year prediction cycle. And right now, the median is around 1.02. So it's on its way to parity. So continued dollar strength, but not all the way down to parity. There's a couple smaller firms that published last week on Bloomberg that they're predicting parity. That all being said, it has a lot to do with a lot of these different policies. If the U.S. continues to grow, we're seeing a great day on the Dow today and the S&P 500, and if the U.S. continues to grow and Europe continues to weaken, we'll probably get to parity at some point in time.
Okay. Boy, you're going to get ready, Kelly, because you're going to have a lot of trades when that happens.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, get ready, Kelly, book your trip.
Yeah.
Because I'll do that too.
Time to buy
Get ready, buy your
property
property.
advance. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
All of that.
That'll be the best. Okay. We have 8 more minutes, Patty. So what else have we got out there?
Oh, where do we want to go? Brian, there was a couple questions for you. One, well, no, we just talked about this. Somebody had a question about what are your thoughts on what kind of timeline we might be looking at the dollar starting to fall?
That's all dependent on America overheating or having one of these types of black swan type of events. A black swan event is something that you can't predict, and that is what Donald Trump wants to make us all think could come about, because he would probably prefer a weaker currency because it helps increase the U.S. economy. That being said, all of his policies are saying the opposite. So it would be next to impossible to try to predict it. Why I point all of this out is we have to be very vigilant about the currency markets over the next couple of years. Most likely dollar strength for a period of time until something big happens. We have to remember back in the 80s, the big thing was the Plaza Accords, which basically created the G5 and forced all of the other developed markets to sell off their US dollars and led to a good 10 years of dollar weakness. Nobody would have predicted that all of the major economies would get into a room, come up with an agreement that we don't really know what they agreed to, and now get together for nice big protests around the world every single, well, quite often, just to make decisions about how things are going on. Those are the types of things that we can't predict and we have to be aware of, and that send us into a 10 or 15-year cycle. So,
Thank you. And this is, I think, on a similar note. When Brian said we are closing in on that 10 to 15-year period of the dollar being strong, did he imply that it has been strong for the past 10 to 15 years and that we are nearing that historical cycle?
so yeah, we're at that 13.5-year time period. That doesn't mean once it hits 15 years that it has to turn over. It's just to point out that these are typically 10 to 15 year cycles since the 1970s when Nixon went off the gold standard. And therefore, we want to be vigilant again. I don't want to say 15 years, boom, it turns back to negative. It's just that's been the history of the cycles.
Okay, let's see what else we have.
Patty, while you're just looking at that, I
Okay.
guess I'll mention real quick, over the course of the last 2 weeks, we've had the highest level of people proactively buying euros than we have in our history. So last month, Money Corp had last week, we had a record-breaking number of transactions occur on the back of the election because we had so many clients that said, you know what? No, I haven't started my property search yet. No, I haven't identified a property, but I just want to diversify my portfolio and I want to proactively buy some euros because I know at some point in the future, whether it's France, Portugal, Italy, Spain, or wherever, I'm going to Europe. And therefore, I want to take advantage of the exchange rate now and I want to go ahead and buy euros. So this is different to the forward contract where people lock into the rate for a future date. This is people going, Money Corp, here's $500,000. Buy me $500,000 worth of euros right now and just leave it there until I'm ready to do that. So that that might sound crazy to some of you, but to others, they might be going, actually, I don't feel comfortable keeping all of my money in my financial institution where it is right now. Yeah, I want to go ahead and take advantage and just leave euros on account with Money Corp. So just pointing out that there are clients that might want to do that.
Well, and that
Kelly,
oh,
go ahead, Patty.
oh, there's another question that fits well with that answer, Kelly. In the event I pass before using the dollars in my account at Money Corp, can I have my beneficiary connected to my account?
Yes, we actually, we advise clients a lot of times, especially elderly clients, that they may want to put a secondary contact on their account. And the reason being is that in the unlikely event, maybe someone does pass away, then the secondary contact on the account can then obviously instruct us on what to do with those funds. If you are independently on the account and something, heaven forbid, happens, then it'd go through the natural kind of probate process. So again, sometimes adding on a significant other, trusted person, that's not a terrible idea.
Patty, I've noticed that there are a lot of people questioning how to go about opening a bank account in France. And so I'd just like to address that one issue. French bank accounts are difficult to open because of FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, which places regulations on foreign financial institutions. I know Brian can talk about that at great length, but because of it, very few banks are interested in having Americans as their customers. And you must be present in France in order to open the account. You don't need to own property in France or anything like that. You don't have to have an address. You don't have to have a visa. You just need to have someone who introduces you. And it's one of the things that we provide as a service is to introduce our clients to the banks in order to help them open accounts. So I just wanted to make that comment. Someone else also asked, and I know that Kelly can answer this one, the difference between you guys and Wise.
I think the biggest thing is that we are human and we are a voice at the other end of the phone. A couple things that I've heard are that there may be a maximum that you can do through the Wise account. I'm not entirely sure on that, but there is no maximum that you can transact through Money Corp. But a million times a day, I hear people say, I just want someone to talk to. I want the same person to, speak to every time that I call. And I oftentimes say, things go wrong, right? It's not a common, it's not whether if they will go wrong, sometimes things just go wrong. And the last thing a client wants to hear is, send an email to this inquiry box and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. If something goes sideways, you want to be able to pick up the phone immediately and speak to me, speak to your currency dealer, and have a team of experts behind you working to get to a resolution. So again, I feel like Wise offers a great solution for people that are sending smaller type of payments to maybe a friend or a family member. You need to send $200, then yes, an app is a great way to do it. But if we're talking about sending sizable transactions and you're wanting some expert guidance, you're wanting to target a specific rate of exchange, then again, having a human being to speak to is a great thing that Money Corp offers.
Interestingly enough, though, because I do tap into Wise to compare the rates, for example, and I use them every now and then for very small transfers. And I know I'm going to pay. I actually know I'm going to pay more on Wise to make those small transfers, but it's not enough money that I can still eat 3 meals a day on it. So, but it's only for transactions of 1,000 or under, for example, something small that's really insignificant. We are beyond our time. So do we want to just take one more final question before we finalize? Anything important out there?
While Patty's saying that, or finding that question, I'll attest to that. I once made the mistake of going through Wise instead of going through Kelly, and one of my transactions didn't go through. You don't send it to an email; you get to go to a chat bot that's AI driven. There's nothing more unnerving than saying,
yes.
Where is my money to a chatbot?
Exactly. So you don't want to take the risk. And it often takes 5 days for the transfer to happen. It takes a much longer time through
It took me 25 days to get that one fixed.
Okay, so these are risks you don't want to take on large transactions.
Absolutely.
Or if you have to make a payment very quickly to someone. I know with Money Corp, it happens within 24 hours. It's no issue. So we have one more question, then we'll
this one's a little bit
close off.
off the wall, I think. Does Money Corp does Money Corp deal with cryptocurrency?
Right.
Not too much off the wall nowadays. Lots of people talking about cryptocurrency. Not for private individuals, unfortunately. So we're still doing bank-to-bank wire transfers and actual money. We're not dealing with cryptocurrency for private individuals. Money Corp does deal with some of the cryptocurrency companies themselves when they need to buy and sell different foreign currencies to offset their balance sheets, but no, for private individuals, not at this time.
Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Brian, you too, of course. Always fascinating to hear your view on money issues. And for everyone out there, thank you very, very much for joining us today. We will be back in 2025 with 4 forums. We'll be promoting those dates very, very soon. So you just need to look at my website, adrianleeds.com, as well as briandunhill.com, who will be announcing them. And Patty, you have anything to add? Anybody else before we sign off?
Important thing. Happy Thanksgiving, ladies and everybody.
Thank you.
And a huge congratulations to Adrian. You don't believe that she's old enough to be a grandma, but congratulations, Grandma.
Excuse me, I am a grandma.
Grandma, Brian.
That's right.
Thank you all
I always
very
learn
much.
something new every single time I see Adrian.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Adrian, always.
Thank you all. See
Thank
you
you, everybody.
soon.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.